Hi guys!
Hello.
First of all, massive apologies. Unsurprisingly, we had last-minute technical difficulties. What can you do? But we are flexible and adaptable, so we have now dealt with it. Introductions. Oh. Yet more technical difficulties. Again, sorry about that. So introductions. So first of all, I'm Josie. I support VSO volunteers with their fundraising. You might well be one of my volunteers, or you might be one of the other agencies. So I'm happy to answer any fundraising questions. But obviously in this webinar, we are focusing on how you can link your fundraising to the media. And that is why we have our lovely guest star, Louise.
Hello, my name is Louise. I'm the media officer for ICS. I'm based at VSO, but I work across the consortium. So no matter what agency you're with, feel free to get in touch with any questions. I'm more than happy to help. I was also an ICS volunteer myself, so I'm familiar with the fundraising process and some of the what can feel like challenges, but really the opportunities it poses.
Absolutely, that is a very good way of phrasing it. I've also gone on ICS myself, and it is an amazing experience. So you should also be very excited about what you're coming into at the moment. Just to mention, it should work okay that if you would like to ask a question, please just pop it in the comments, and we will get to it. We're going to go through a bit of an introduction to how you might want to approach the media initially, and then if you do have any questions, just write them down in the comments and we'll get to them. Obviously media is the focus, so do try and keep it related to the media. If you have any other fundraising questions, please do ask those to your fundraising support officer when you get a chance in the next few days. Great. So Louise, tell us a little bit about getting in touch with the media.
Okay, well, I will give an overview of the kind of steps that we normally tell volunteers to go through, and some kind of handy tips, and then at the end, as Josie says, just shout any questions and we will go through them all in turn. So first of all, I thought I'd just speak a little bit about why getting in touch with your local media might be a good idea. And just to say that I will speak throughout about kind of local and regional media. We don't ask you to try and get in touch with BBC Breakfast or, I don't know, Channel 4 News, because that is something that we're doing and it's pretty challenging at the best of times, so don't worry about anything like that. So first of all, in terms of why you might want to get in touch with your local media, there are over 1,000 local newspapers in the UK and there are 1,700 websites. These are kind of highly trusted by readers, like much more so than national newspapers. They have kind of very high levels of, they're expected to be honest and not kind of attributed with the same bias. So they're a good place to get your voice heard, and they're also always looking for content, particularly about young people, local young people who are doing interesting things, which obviously all of you are. What local newspapers always want is a sort of feel-good local story with, and I can't stress this enough, a local angle. And that is great for you because just by virtue of the fact you live there, you are eligible to be in their paper. So we basically think that it's quite likely that a local TV show is going to be, media outlet is going to be interested in you, and that's why we encourage you to do it. It's a great way to raise money. It just helps people, people find out about your events, if it's a particular event you're talking about, or if you just want to share your Just Giving, you're still about to do something really interesting and amazing. So quite often they will still run a story about you. So that's it, and I think you've had instances of people getting quite big one-off donations, haven't you?
We have. One of my favourite stories, which is almost unbelievable how good it was that someone was publicising their fundraising in a local paper. They got an anonymous donation of £500. Now, I want to stress that this is certainly not going to happen every time, but I think a large part of fundraising is really putting yourself out there and being open to the possibilities of those sort of things happening. So be aware that if you do things like get in touch with the media, you're just giving yourself extra opportunities to get those donations that you wouldn't expect. Plus, it's also handy because it's not donations just from your friends and family, so you're getting across the message to even more people than you would expect to.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so that is why we think it's a great idea for you to get in touch with the local media. And now I will kind of run through how we ask you to go about doing that. I should say that we do have a really helpful how to get in touch with your local media cheat sheet, and we'll share a link to this in the comments section, so don't feel like you need to sit and make loads of notes. I'll just rattle through it, and then you can always refer to this later.
And just to briefly mention, in the comments now, I've just left a couple of articles that are really good examples of media coverage. So if I'm looking off to the side here, I'm not distracted, I'm very interested in what Louise is saying. I'm just giving you some extra bits to look through in the comments. And please do leave some questions.
Great. Okay, so step one is you need to create what we call a press release. So for those of you who maybe aren't familiar with a press release, essentially it is a statement that you send to the media saying, you know, what your story is, what's happening, or what the piece of news is, you know, who, what, where, when, why, all of the important questions you can cover off in this statement. We actually have 2 different pre-departure press releases that you can use, and we'll put a link to those in the comments as well. So what we've done basically is written a template, and we want to make it as easy as possible for you guys. So we've just written, you know, insert name here from insert location here is going to be doing international citizen service. Then we describe the program, we explain where the money goes, and you essentially just fill in the gaps. It's really straightforward. Shouldn't take you more than half an hour. It shouldn't even take you that. There are a couple of other things you need to put in there, like a quote from yourself, but you'll see that we've put suggested quotes. There's one template for if you're doing a specific event that you want to promote, so say if you're doing a pub quiz or a jumble sale or whatever it might be, and there's another one that's just a bit more generic, so it's more just kind of like local young person is doing this amazing thing, here's their Just Giving. Absolutely fine to use either, but if you do want to promote a particular event, do use the event focused one. So essentially, yeah, you go onto the website, you download that, you fill it out, and then you read it back, but read it aloud and make sure that it makes sense to yourself. It's quite easy to, if you're writing something, get lost in it. So we recommend reading it back out loud. You're also more than welcome to send them to your fundraising support officer, and they'll have a read, or I'll have a read, and we'll just make sure that it's like good to go. But equally, if you're pretty confident and you don't feel like you want to share it with us, we're happy for you to go ahead.
That's a really good tip actually in terms of reading it aloud, because even, I mean, in general, even if you're applying for a job or you're like writing an essay, reading it aloud, it sort of makes sense in your head then, doesn't it?
Definitely. It is too easy to make small mistakes that make you sound silly, as I know in releases I've sent out in the past. Okay, so you've got your press release, and the other thing that you need to have before you start contacting newspapers and radio stations is a nice clear picture of yourself. Preferably if you have your ICS t-shirt at this point, we say put your ICS t-shirt on. If you don't, then it would be you doing something hopefully linked to your fundraising. If you've done, I don't know, say some bucket collecting, or if you've already done a fundraising activity. If you don't have either of those, just a clear photo of you is fine. What newspapers want is to be able to see from here upwards your face, you're looking smiley, looking happy, not loads of other people in the photo. We need it to be obvious that it's you and the story is about you. So find one of those, make sure it's nice and clear and as high resolution as possible so that it would look good if it was printed. Now once you've got those two, what you need to do is find your local media. So who are you gonna send these to? It might be, you might have 1 or 2 local papers, you might have 3, it kind of depends where you live. And if you don't have access to a professional PR media database, which you probably don't, we suggest you just Googling, say if you live in Croydon News, and it will come up with the Croydon Advertiser, the Croydon, what's the other one called? Sorry, Guardian.
This is testing your knowledge of Croydon.
Yeah. Well, anyway, so Croydon media outlets will come up, and it should probably bring up radio stations as well. And if it doesn't, feel free to Google Croydon Radio. Then what we say do is for each of those, go onto their website, and they'll have a phone number, and you can just give them a call, and you can say, hi, I've got a story that I want to send you. I think you might be interested. What's the best email address? And they'll either give you a news desk email address, which essentially a news desk will go to anyone that writes news at that paper, and they'll be able to review it, and then it will get sent to the person most relevant, and they'll be in touch. Or if you speak to someone on the phone and you describe the story a little bit, if they say, okay, what's the story about? They might say, that sounds really interesting, I want to write about that, so they'll give you their personal address. So either way, as long as you get an email address from them, that's fine. So you've got the email address, and we do that for every outlet. And when you're calling radio stations, be sure to say, I'm about to do this, and I was wondering if you might be interested in hearing about it. Either that is about the fundraising event or about the program that you're about to engage in. and you say, you know, like, I'd love to come in and do an interview. I think your listeners would be really interested. You know, ICS, and it's always good to mention that ICS is open to all 18 to 25-year-olds. So then you can say, you know, I want to let other young people know about the opportunity. So it's not just you kind of promoting yourself, you're doing it for the, you know, community, which is what local media are interested in.
I think actually, I mean, that's such a good point, that it's really important to think about not just what you're getting out of the exchange, but what they're getting out of the exchange. And actually, you know, ICS is such a unique program that people want to hear about. So, you know, certainly don't do yourself down by thinking to yourself like, oh, loads of people go on volunteering things, because actually in local news, you know, that it's a really impressive story to say, you know, I'm an 18 to 25-year-old, I've never done anything like this before, and now I'm raising all this money to then go on a placement. So yeah, just to sort of encourage you to even if you feel a little bit perhaps like this isn't something that might be for you, give it a go. You know, worst they can say is no.
Yeah, I mean, like, the very worst that will happen is that you don't get a response. I don't get responses all the time.
Yeah.
But as Josie quite rightly says, it is a really interesting story, and I think what's important to stress is that you're going to be doing really good work whilst you're over there as well. So, you know, as much as you can, depending on where you are in your journey, you know, do also include information about your project, about the difference you'll be making, about the people you'll be working with. People love to hear about people from their local area doing good stuff, and you're doing great stuff, so don't play that down. So yeah, where were we? So basically you want to give them a call, get the best email address, and then when you're sending over your press release, don't put it as an attachment. Literally write a little short email that says, hi, and if it's someone you've just spoken to, you say, hi, thanks for your time on the phone. As promised, I'm sending over the press release about the volunteering that I'm about to do, or the fundraising event I'm about to do. I've copied and pasted it below and attached my photo. I look forward to hearing from you soon, and make sure you include your contact details as well. And then just copy and paste the press release into the body of your email, attach your photo, and hit send. And then fingers crossed, they'll see it and they'll say, this looks like a great opportunity, we want to cover this story. And you should, you know, if you haven't heard anything in a couple of days, don't be disheartened, because frankly local journalists are so busy. There are fewer and fewer of them working on the same number of outlets, so they are, yeah, they're up to here with it. So basically just bear in mind that they're really busy, and then feel free to chase them. You know, they might see it and they might just forget to give you a call, but they think it's really worthwhile. So in a couple of days later, if you haven't had a response, just pick up the phone again, call back, call the same number, and just say, hi, you know, I spoke to someone the other day, they were interested in my story, I sent over a press release. I was just wondering if you were interested in covering the story. Is there anything else I can do for you? Maybe I could give an interview, maybe you need some more photos. And then in that situation, they should be able to give you an answer and an indication. If they turn around and say, we don't have space for it in the paper, like, that's their call. Don't be disheartened. You've done everything you can. But hopefully they'll say, yeah, that sounds great, and they'll do something with the information you've shared with them. And then hopefully, you know, in another couple of days, you should see your story online, or maybe they'll email you with a link to it. I mean, it's all right to chase them again. Don't chase them indefinitely. Maybe 3 times is the limit. But if they're sounding positive and they're sounding interested, do feel free to keep going, and don't feel like you're hassling them. They get hassled all the time, mainly by me, and they are very much used to it.
I think that's another really good point, and again sort of relates to fundraising quite generally. Obviously, yeah, don't pressure people, but do, you know, if someone sort of showed interest or has mentioned that they're keen on helping you, do follow up with people, because it happens all the time. You know, we all say to people, oh yeah, of course I'm going to donate to your fundraising, and you just don't get around to doing it. You forget, you know, you've got a lot going on, so you don't think of doing it. So, you know, bear in mind, as long as you're polite and friendly, it's completely reasonable to chase people up on things like this, because if you do, you know, you might find that person certainly wasn't ignoring you, that they were just, you know, they had other things going on that day, and they hadn't quite got round to it. So yeah, I'd encourage people to as long as it's polite and friendly, as I mentioned, but to chase people up, definitely.
Yeah. Very much agreed. And that is kind of it, really. That is, you know, it's a pretty simple process. I understand that it can sometimes seem a bit daunting if you haven't contacted a newspaper before, but just by following those steps, it's really straightforward. And all I can say is that, you know, newspapers need stories. Newspapers run because they share news with people, and so don't feel like you're hassling them. You're actually kind of doing them a favour. Like, you're bringing an interesting story to them, and you're offering photos and interviews and quotes, and that's what they need. So yeah, don't feel like you're hassling them, and don't feel kind of shy about doing it. And if you need any support whatsoever, just get in touch with your fundraising officer, and then I can give you a call, or they'll be able to give you some guidance. We'll, between us, we are all on hand to offer support.
Absolutely. No question is too small, first of all. We have documents that we can send you, so the press release document that Louise mentioned, and also a sort of general guide, so basically everything that Louise has just talked through, we've got that all written down. So the fundraising support officers can send you those documents, but if you want something a bit more specific, so for example, if you are going on the radio and you sort of feel a little bit unsure about how to talk about ICS, that is the perfect time to contact your fundraising support officer, and they will get Louise to give you a call, and you can have a chat about things, because essentially for us it's such an amazing opportunity to have coverage in the media, especially from the people who are going overseas. That is quite a unique thing for us to benefit from. So please do help us out, essentially. Help us out, and then obviously you'll get those options. Potentially you'll get some really good opportunities for extra fundraising. One thing just to briefly mention, I think that's really key, is that even if people don't see that article and automatically donate to your page, what you will be doing is raising awareness, and that is one of the key reasons we ask you to fundraise. So actually that is just as important as the pennies coming in.
Yeah, absolutely. And we love it when we see volunteers kind of taking the initiative and engaging with the media, because it is such a great way to promote ICS and to make sure that people know about the opportunity it offers. So yeah, please do feel free to take this and run with it to a certain extent.
Absolutely.
I'm just trying to think of any extra tips. In terms of interviews, it might be that you're asked to give an interview over the phone, say, to a journalist. And when I say give an interview, I don't mean like a job interview, or like they're going to be like pack spinning you. It will be really straightforward. It will be like, how come how did you find out about it? Why did you want to apply? What were you doing before? What are your hopes for the future? What will you be doing whilst you're there? And so a few key tips we'd say for that is just, if there's 3 pieces of information that you really want to get across in an interview, it's fine to write them down and have them in front of you, and then as you go you can just make sure you tick them off, and you've said them and you've worked them into your conversation. And at the end, if you haven't said one of them, if one of them say is, oh, I'm doing a pub quiz on the 13th, just say at the end, oh, can you also mention that I'm doing this? Make sure you get your just giving in there, and don't feel under any pressure, because these phone chats are super casual, and yours is a good, nice news story. You're not it's not hard hitting kind of.
No,
you're not going to be grilled.
Gentle,
yeah.
Cool.
So I think that's it from me.
Excellent. Well, those are very, very useful tips. Thank you very much. I noticed no one's asked any questions. Come on, guys, we're here for you. So please do leave us questions in the comments. There's a couple of question and answer things that me and Louise can go through anyway that we thought might be useful things. But please don't be shy about asking questions. As I say, there is no such thing as a silly question. And I can promise you that every silly question there has been, I have asked. So
yeah, and I probably have too.
We're very good at that. So what would you do, Louise, if you had sent off a story to the paper and they hadn't really responded?
Yeah, like I said, I think it's just a case of following people up. So if they haven't responded, give them another call. You can call back on that number that you originally got, and if you hadn't spoken to the news desk last time, you can say to them, can I speak to your news desk, please? And that, like I said, so the news desk, there'll be someone sat there who just handles all of the incoming stories.
Yeah.
And so you can say to them, hi there, I sent through a press release a couple of days ago about, and then you explain what it's about.
Sure.
And then you say, I haven't had an answer just yet. I was wondering if I could, I was wondering if this is something you'd be interested in covering. Maybe I can send it through again and you can have a look at it. And then 9 times out of 10, in fact almost 10 times out of 10, they'll just say, oh yeah, sure. They get hundreds of these every day. So yeah, don't be perturbed is my advice.
What, in terms of fundraising, so what would you say counts as being media worthy? Like, as a fundraising event, would you say that some particular fundraisers are better than others for media?
Good question. So I'd say things that are really media worthy are things where you're going to engage the local community. So pub quizzes, if you're doing, I don't know, a cake sale at I don't know, if you're organising like a jumble sale,
Sure.
or you're organising what community events are there? This is your area of expertise, not mine.
Okay, so let me have a think then in that case. Oh no, I'm on the spot. Well, it sort of links to another question I was going to ask you in terms of, so if you have links to other perhaps media outlets like through churches, like networks like that, because that was something that I was going to mention. You know, if you are specifically doing an event with the help of someone else, or you are working with a group, that is obviously a great thing to do because that's you coming together with other people. But yeah, what would you say is useful if you're sort of working, if you are part of an organisational group?
Okay, I tell you what, I'm going to backtrack slightly and finish my train of thought. The original one,
We're going around here and there a little bit, aren't we?
So no, I would say, so anything you're doing that engages other members of the community and that people can attend. So say if you're organising a photography competition or exhibition, whatever, that's really good to put in the media, because you can then say, you can include a call to action, which is buy tickets, attend. And then I would say other things that are really good are things that are silly or unusual, things that are a bit kind of new.
Yeah.
Like if you're, I don't know, if you're going to take a bath in a load of beans and you get some really amazing photos of you doing it, you can send a press release out afterwards actually saying, because you wouldn't have invited people necessarily to watch, but you might say, I did this really silly thing, or say if you're doing like some weird dares that your friends have told you to do, not to, like keep it safe and sensible, but you could do that, and then it will be kind of, if it's funny, if it's kind of interesting, stuff like that is good. Also kind of, like things that the classics work well as well. If you're running a half marathon, if you're doing the 3 peaks, really people are just interested because you're doing something quite worthwhile. But they would be, the things to emphasise are if it's new, unusual, interesting, or if it's kind of participatory.
Excellent. That's a good range of things.
And to go back to your question about other groups, what I would say is always to bear in mind that whilst we're talking here about kind of local media, and they're really important, there will be other networks that you can tap into as well. So I think you mentioned churches, and like church newsletters are a really good idea. So church newsletters, or maybe your parents are part of, I don't know, my dad plays a lot of badminton. Like if there's a badminton in South London newsletter, stuff like that.
You never know.
Yeah, you never know. Or say if you are part of a particular group that you're, I don't know, if you're from a particular community, say you're part of the Polish community in the UK, like don't, remember to get in touch with any kind of like Polish websites or community groups, stuff like that. Which it's the same tricks you'd use when you're thinking about your networks for fundraising. Yeah. But just think about which of those networks might also have websites, newsletters.
And on that note, I'm going to do a quick plug for our network mapping video. So if you go on YouTube and search for ICS Network Mapping, it should come up. That shouldn't be a problem. And that can be a good way to think about, certainly in terms of the media, but also generally good connections for you to make for fundraising. I would strongly recommend this, because actually one thing that comes up time and time again is people say, I just don't have anyone who can help me. But actually, when you really think through the links that those people might have to different communities, organisations, workplaces, social activities, there's so many opportunities out there. So I would never want anyone to go without being aware of the opportunities that were there. Now we have got a question, but it's just asking for the template of the press release, which we can absolutely send to you, which is great. We'll put them on the Facebook page, but also feel free to contact your fundraising support officer and they can send you them. There haven't been any other questions, sadly, which is a tragedy.
Well, maybe
for
it's
us.
Because we've been so comprehensive in our explanation.
Maybe that's why it is.
I like to think that's
I
what
like to
it
think
is.
that, and I like to think if you don't say anything, then you must have really enjoyed the webinar.
I agree.
We'll leave it there.
Yes,
Is there anything else
that's
you want
great.
to add?
No, I suppose just one final thing to say, please do think about doing this as a way of boosting your fundraising. It can be super helpful, and it really isn't very difficult at all. And if you're feeling like it's a little bit daunting calling the newspaper or approaching a radio station, just give these guys a shout, and
absolutely
they or I will be in touch.
Yeah. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Please tune in for another webinar. We have one in 2 or 3 weeks. So tune in then, and good luck with your fundraising.
Thanks.
Bye.